and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The US has imposed new sanctions on Myanmar, blocking its military and ministries of defense and home affairs from trade. Meanwhile, a clash over the country's UN representation has been averted after the military's nominee quit. This comes as pro-democracy activists are holding more demonstrations today to oppose the ouster of the elected government. Arab-led coalition in Yemen says it has downed multiple Houthi drones launched towards different Saudi cities. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki al-Malki said the latest Houthi strikes aim to attack Jazan and Khamis Mushat cities. Houthi strikes against Saudi targets have increased many-fold in recent days. An 8.1 magnitude earthquake and a series of powerful undersea aftershocks struck northeast of New Zealand. However, tsunami waves passed without causing substantial damage on the country's North Island. Earlier, officials warned that waves could reach 3 meters above high tide levels after the quakes. Brazil has reported almost 1,700 new coronavirus fatalities overnight as its death toll crosses 260,000. Pakistan has registered over 1,500 infections and 52 fatalities in a day, with the death toll surging over 13,100. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.56 million lives and infected over 115 million people. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The US has imposed new sanctions on Myanmar, blocking its military and ministries of defense and home affairs from trade. Earlier, a UN human rights investigator urges the Security Council to impose a global arms embargo on Myanmar. Meanwhile, a clash over the country's UN representation has been averted after the military's nominee quit. Singapore's foreign minister has also called on Myanmar's military rulers to seek a peaceful solution to the unrest. In a statement, the minister said it was a national shame for the armed forces of a country to use weapons against their own people. This comes as pro-democracy activists are holding more demonstrations today to oppose the ouster of the elected government. At least 55 people have been killed and over 1,700 arrested since the February 1st coup. Arab-led coalition in Yemen says it has downed multiple Houthi drones launched towards different Saudi cities. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki al-Malki said the latest Houthi strikes aimed at Jazan and Khamis Mushat cities. Al-Maliki said Houthis are deliberately escalating hostile and terrorist assaults on civilians using ballistic missiles. He said these terrorist attacks amount to war crimes. Yesterday, Houthis claimed they attacked Saudi oil facility Aramco in Jazan. Houthi strikes against Saudi targets have increased many-fold in recent days amid ramped-up international efforts to end the Yemen war. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says the 2015 nuclear deal cannot be renegotiated. In a tweet, Zarif called on the US to stop posturing to no avail and implement the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran also welcomed a decision by the European powers not to submit an anti-Tehran resolution at the International Atomic Energy Agency. A foreign ministry spokesperson said this will save the road to diplomacy. Saeed Khatibzadeh said the plan was dropped after intensive diplomatic efforts in Tehran and capitals of all member states, specifically France, Germany and the UK, as well as support from China and Russia. Another Indian soldier has committed suicide at the regional military headquarters in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This comes just a day after a lieutenant colonel killed himself with a service weapon on the outskirts of Srinagar. Over the past 24 hours, 3 Indian soldiers have committed suicide, bringing the toll for 2021 to 4. Last year, 35 Indian soldiers in occupied Kashmir committed suicide. Indian authorities say the reasons for the suicides are not known, but past instances link their depression to active duty in oppressive operations in the valley. Chairman of the U.S. Foreign Relations Committee has urged Washington to find a way forward to resolve the Kashmir dispute. Talking to the media, Senator Bob Menendez said he is satisfied over the recent border ceasefire pledge between Pakistan and India. He also called on Washington to re-engage with Pakistan in many different dimensions. Menendez said the U.S. Foreign Relations Committee will highlight the situation in the occupied valley. Earlier, the U.S. State Department said Washington's policy on Kashmir remains unchanged. It clarified that it still considers Jammu and Kashmir as a disputed territory between India and Pakistan. A UN expert has warned that anti-Muslim hatred has escalated to epidemic proportions. UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion, Ahmed Shahid, said this in a report to the Human Rights Council. He said some states have resorted to harsh measures that disproportionate target Muslims. He said widespread negative representations of Islam have served to normalize discrimination towards Muslims. Shahid said rampant Islamophobia has made it difficult for a Muslim to practice his faith. The UN expert urged states to take necessary measures to combat all forms of discrimination against Muslims. An 8.1 magnitude earthquake and a series of powerful undersea aftershocks struck northeast of New Zealand. Authorities say 3 offshore quakes between magnitude 7.2 and 8.1 hit the country's North Island in less than 8 hours. The powerful quakes triggered early tsunami warning. However, tsunami waves passed without causing substantial damage on the island. Earlier, officials warned that waves could reach 3 meters above high tide levels. Authorities said thousands of residents who had evacuated to higher ground could now return to their homes. The U.S. Senate has voted to take up President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus aid bill. However, the upper chamber put off the start of a contentious debate until the full text of the 628-page bill is read aloud. A vote on the final passage of the bill is expected to come over the weekend. The party line vote of 50-51 illustrated that Democrats can expect little if there is any Republican support. Meanwhile, President Biden says he will continue to speak to Republicans about the bill.
I've been talking to a lot of my Republican friends in the House and the Senate, continue to do that, and we have. We've have a number of meetings with Republicans on the coronavirus bill, and House, Senate, a combination of both, so we're keeping everybody informed.
The relief bill includes funding for vaccines and medical supplies and extends jobless assistance. And now moving on, Brazil has reported almost 1,700 new coronavirus fatalities overnight as its death toll crosses 260,000. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.56 million lives and infected over 115 million people. Details in the following report. Rising COVID-19 cases and stronger new variants are threatening a more lethal third wave while posing new challenges to the already less than perfect vaccine drives. After 2 straight days of record deaths in Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro continues to downplay the crisis and snub voices calling for restrictions. Meanwhile, Cuba has begun late-stage trials of its most advanced experimental COVID-19 vaccine. The White House defended President Joe Biden over his remarks on Texas and Mississippi officials lifting restrictions on mask mandates.
The behavior of a Neanderthal, just to be very clear, the behavior of. Look, I think the president, what everybody saw yesterday was a reflection of his frustration and exasperation, which I think many American people have, that for almost a year now, people across the country have sacrificed. And many times they haven't had information they need from the federal government. They haven't had access to a greater understanding of what the public health guidelines should look like.
In the UK, authorities have designated another newly found strain as a variant under investigation, keeping it on the watch list. Sweden and Germany have extended their recommendation for the AstraZeneca vaccine to cover people over 65. Meanwhile, to save shots, Italy and Germany are administering just a single dose to people who have been infected with the virus up to 6 months beforehand.
Now it has certainly been recommended. Alongside this, we also now have this direct experience. Many of my healthcare professionals, general practitioners who have contracted COVID and who were not vaccinated and have proven to have a very high antibody rate. As a result, there is actually this situation.
Australia has asked the European Commission to review a decision by Italy to block a shipment of AstraZeneca's vaccine. Meanwhile, the Japanese government plans to extend a state of emergency for Tokyo and 3 prefectures until March 21st. Research shows that antibodies triggered by exposure to South Africa's dominant variant can prevent infection by other variants. COVID-19 has claimed 52 more lives in Pakistan overnight, raising the death toll to 13,128. The Health Ministry reported 1,579 new infections over the last 24 hours. The ministry said the infections have surpassed 587,000. It said more than 556,000 people have recovered from COVID-19 so far. The ministry added that the number of active cases has reduced to just over 17,000. Meanwhile, a little under 2,000 patients are currently being treated in hospitals for COVID-19. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has reiterated to enhance the friendly ties it has with Pakistan. Pakistan Air Force Chief Mujahid Anwar Khan called Rajapaksa in Colombo. The Air Chief is in Colombo to attend the 70th anniversary of the Sri Lankan Air Force as a guest of honor. In a statement, a PAF spokesperson said Rajapaksa acknowledged Pakistan's unwavering support to Sri Lanka. The Air Chief said the people of both countries have deep-rooted historic and cultural linkages. Earlier on arrival, he was received by Sri Lanka Air Force Commander Sudarshana Pathirana. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A freight train has derailed in a desert in the U.S. state of California, sending more than 40 rail cars off the tracks. Officials said no injuries were reported when the train went off the tracks near the remote Mojave Desert community of Ludlow. Rail cars, some carrying hazardous materials, piled up along the tracks. The fire department said a hazardous material spill was quickly mitigated. The cause of the accident is under investigation. Russia's northwest Karelia region has staged an exhibition in the freezing waters of the White Sea. More about this unique exhibition in this report. The ice of the White Sea is a strange setting for an art display. At the end of February, photographer Viktor Lyagushkin and artist Denis Lotrev brought their pictures, paintings and sculptures to the frozen sea to pull them into the water. To see the exhibition, visitors have to put on a diving suit and brace temperatures close to zero.
The pictures are cool. I saw them before, but under the sea. They look different. The effect is very interesting. With the light of a torch, they begin to shine and look tri-dimensional.
Lyagushkin, known for his works for National Geographic, put up pictures of the White Sea flora and fauna.
It is well known that the climate is changing. It is a fact, although it is -30 today. The White Sea is the southernmost of all Arctic seas. It changes very fast. It may happen that those creatures, whose life is frozen onto the ice, will become extinct in the White Sea in the nearest future. That is why we are taking pictures with them and put them on display underwater, to let them survive at least on the photographs because they cannot become extinct in the White Sea.
Artworks will stay on display till approximately April 15th, till the ice starts melting. Then the masterpieces will return to the studio. In 1988, Eddie Murphy's Coming to America opened to widespread acclaim. The movie catapulted Murphy to international stardom. More than 30 years later, the Hollywood A-lister and Arsenio Hall are reprising their roles in a sequel. More in this report.
Hello, I am Hakim Jaffer, King of Zamunda. You are the heir to the throne. Yes, my son.
Just like old wine, comedian Eddie Murphy is getting better and better every day. The plot will revolve around the adventure of newly crowned King Akeem, played by Murphy himself. Comedian Tracy Morgan says he is overjoyed to land a role in the film.
That's the last surprise.
And to be considered to be a part of it and to play the role that I played, man, I would have did any role in this movie, but to be the boy's uncle, I'm directly connected with Eddie in this movie, so we all family, and that's how we felt.
Most of the original cast is making their return in the sequel, including James Earl Jones as King Yaffe Joffer and Sherry Headley as Akeem's wife Lisa. Another new face includes Murphy's daughter, Bella Murphy.
I think he just saw how passionate I was about it, and he made an exception and asked me if I wanted to audition for the princess, which I was like, yes, I do. And then I went in and did it, and yeah.
He's supposed to be like the prince of Wakanda.
Wakanda is a fictional place.
Not to everybody.
Zamunda is a very real nation.
The sequel to Murphy's classic is released on Amazon Prime Video. Paramount Pictures was supposed to release the film in theaters, but its distribution rights were sold to Amazon Studios because of the pandemic.
The king pays no child support.
No child support for 30 years and you came back.
Shares in the Asia Pacific are trading mixed as investors watched bond yields as well as technology stocks in the region. Australia's ASX 200 is leading the losses, dropping close to 1%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and Topix index have dipped almost 0.5% each. South Korea's Kospi has slipped marginally, but shares in mainland China and Hong Kong have gained nearly 0.5%. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.